All right, a lot of action is going to start happening right now, so this is an exciting time as Bears fans, as NFL fans. You're going to start seeing the rosters trimmed right away. If you didn't see earlier, Ja'Tyre Carter was cut from the Bears' 53-man roster. That's going to happen throughout the day. You're going to see a lot of these players, they're trying to be on the fringe. They might have tried to get some action for Ja'Tyre Carter, couldn't get it, so they cut him. Some of these other players, maybe Josh Blackwell, Greg Stroman Jr., some of these guys right on the fringe, you're going to see them trying to deal today. Teams right now, GMs are going crazy, calling each other right now, trying to make deals for guys that they see add value before they hit the waiver so they can make sure they get their guy. There's going to be some of those guys the Bears cut that are going to be picked up immediately. Travis Gibson, who had one of the best preseasons last year for the Bears, the highest rated preseason grade last year for the Bears, ended up getting cut. A surprise to a lot of Bears fans, but really the reason he fits more of a 3-4 scheme than a 4-3 scheme. He just barely got traded from Jacksonville to Seattle for a 7th rounder, so I wish we could have done that last year. I hope we get a couple of these guys this year that we get some value for. It'd be nice to get some of those 6th, 7th round picks. Not necessarily because those 6th or 7th rounders will make the roster, but they can be packaged up with, say, your 4th rounder to a couple of those with a 5th rounder to get a 4th rounder, something like that. So it's nice just to have the arsenal, to be able to have the weapons, to be able to pick someone. And sometimes there is a really late round guy in the draft that you wanted to pick up. And if you don't have a pick there in the 6th or 7th round, you don't get to snag them. You have to wait for undrafted free agency and hope they fall. So there is some value there. But before we get into all that, let's go over the preseason awards. Which guys stood out? Because some of these guys have already been cut. And it doesn't mean you're a lock to make the roster if you are one of the best in the preseason. It's just your audition. This is kind of funny. Brandon Perna, a lot of you guys might know him. That's Good Sports. Broncos have officially won the preseason. Please give us our trophy. I said I beg to differ. The Chicago Bears accomplished that feat no more than 3 days ago. And that was yesterday, I believe, when he said that. But a little spin on Happy Gilmore. But the Bears won the preseason. Here is the top overall team. The Chicago Bears were 4-0. We played one more game, but we were the most dominant overall team, and we had a plus 68-point differential. These are the teams that went undefeated and had an overall grade of over 75, so there were 5 of them. Doesn't mean bupkis. Let's be honest. It doesn't. Doesn't mean anything, but it is nice to see the team gel, have cohesion, be building towards the season. That's what you want, and I feel like this team accomplished that. Next, we got the overall top offense, and the highlight to me on this was Kerry Joseph and Shane Waldron. They really prepared the quarterbacks to play really well. All of them, all 4 of them played really well, and combined they had 0 interceptions thrown. So the Bears had the best overall grade. You see right there, right in the middle, 89.6. The Jaguars 87.9. All the way down, these are the teams with that were the top overall offensive. Sorry, Bears were 80.4. This is the offense over, and Vikings were at 70.4. All right, you go to this, as well, I wanted to point this out. Offensive line pass block efficiency, something the Bears have been absolutely one of the worst in the league on in the last couple of years. And I understand you can make the argument that Justin Fields had something to do with that. He did have a little to do with it, but there were issues with the way this line was being coached and with the way that we handled the pressure. The Bears were second this preseason in overall pass blocking efficiency with a 94.6 grade. 10 pressures allowed in 4 games. I will take that. Only 1 sack allowed. Caleb being a team player, Caleb said, I take credit for that sack. I held on to it too long. I didn't escape. He took credit for it, but the reality is the line is looking really, really improved. Something that was our main weakness is looking like something that could be a strength this year. If we're cutting Ja'Tyre Carter already, we feel a lot more confident with where things have been. So here's our top offensive players. Guys with a 70, this is based off PFF, guys, and I understand it's not the end-all be-all, but it is a good basis. I've always said my guys above 75 are starter quality guys. Now, this is the preseason. Some of these guys, like Aviante Collins, are only facing 3rd rounders only getting in the 3rd and 4th quarter and not facing your top tier guys. But a lot of them were facing top tier guys. So here's your top offensive grades. Tyson Bagent, 89.2. Bill Murray, 88.5. Brett Rippon, 86.0. Brennan Bates, 85.8. Doug Kramer, 83.2. And the big thing with Doug Kramer, we haven't talked about a lot. He's developing, guys. We took him with a late round a couple years ago, 2 years ago. And his run blocking looks like Tevin Jenkins. I'm not kidding. Go look on tape. I get it, 2nd, 3rd rounders. But he did look like Tevin Jenkins in the run game. I'm really impressed with Doug Kramer. I don't think he makes the 53-man roster, but if we can keep him on the practice squad and we have some emergency happen with Coleman Shelton or Ryan Bates get injured, Doug Kramer's not looking like such a bad option to me anymore. He's coming around to be that guy that we kind of hoped he would be a couple years ago, but we weren't as patient with because the team was a lot worse position. And now we're improving. Now we're in a lot better position. So it looks good. Cole Kmet had 81.2 grade. Dante Pettis, 80.3. Tevin Jenkins, 79.5. And Aviante Collins, 76.4. Here's the top defense. The highlights: we had 12 sacks this preseason and 5 interceptions. So the hits principles are working. Looked really good. We had the best grade by far, 84.2 defensive grade. You look at the fifth column to the right there. Jets 79.9, Broncos all the way down to the Patriots above 76. So the Bears were leading in both categories, offense and defense, and you love to see it. I mean, I get it. It's the participation trophy portion of the preseason. Doesn't mean anything, but it does for this team that's trying to establish themselves and build a playoff contending team. It does mean something. And so you love to see it. It would be much worse if we were looking the other way. There's not panic right now. It feels really good. Here's your top defensive players. Khalid Kareem, who was already cut, 88.8. Micah Baskerville, 87.4. Tavarius Moore, 87.0. Jalen Johnson, 81.6. Yes, I fixed the picture. Sorry for those that I didn't get my double check last time, but he's fixed. Quindale Johnson, 80.8. Byron Cowart, 80.2. Man, that's going to be a tough decision. I don't think Byron Cowart can make it, so we'll see what happens. Austin Booker, 79.7. He's clearly making it. Jack Sanborn, 76.9. Jonathan Owens, 76.6. Daniel Hardy, 75.9. Better make the 53-man. Andrew Billings, 75.7. Greg Stroman Jr., 75.3. And Adrian Colbert, 75.3. Now, here are the accolades for the offseason. Here are players that ranked in the top 10 in respective categories. So no matter what the categories were, these guys were in the top 10. Here's your offensive ones. Dante Pettis, Colin Johnson, and Tommy Sweeney, also a cut already, tied for second in the entire league with 2 receiving touchdowns each. So they each had 2 receiving touchdowns, and that was good enough for second in the league. Top was 3. Velus Jones Jr. was third in the league with rushing yards, 158 yards this preseason. Also fifth for yards per attempt per rush, 6.8 yards per attempt. He looked really good when he got in the open field. Obviously had the huge run, one of them taken back as well. But looked really good with the ball in his hands, especially for a guy that just barely converted to be running back. So looked really solid for Velus Jones. Brett Rippon tied 6th for touchdowns thrown with 4. Also first in NFL passer rating on those that qualified. You had to have at least 10 passes, dropbacks, to be able to qualify. He had 131.4 NFL pass rating, and Tyson Bagent was second with 119.9. A couple starting quarterbacks had 1 or 2 throws, kind of like the Justin Fields effect last year. Couple plays in, threw 2 screen passes, went 50,000 yards, and was one of the highest in the league. These guys actually played in games, so these are qualified guys. 131.4 and 119.9 first and second. So our backups are better than anybody else's backup quarterbacks, 100%. And Bill Murray was third in pass blocking efficiency. There's several that had 100% pass blocking efficiency, but then it came down to all those that had 100. What that means is if you have 100% pass block efficiency, that means you didn't allow a single pressure. So no sacks, hits, or hurries allowed. And man, I really like Bill Murray, converted from defensive interior, defensive tackle, and has taken on that guard position really well. Big reason Ja'Tyre Carter was cut today. Third overall with 67 pass blocking opportunities and 0 pressures allowed. The only guys that had higher were obviously still 100%, but had more pass blocking opportunities. So Bill Murray looked really good. All right, on to the defensive side of the ball, and man, this defensive unit's getting really fun to watch. It's going to be exciting. These are the top players in top 10 categories, regardless of what the category is. Daniel Hardy was tied first for sacks with 4. Austin Booker right behind him tied 4th for sacks with 3. Reddy Stewart had 2 interceptions. That was good enough to be tied for first in the league this preseason. Austin Booker was tied for 6 with total pressures. So he had 9 sacks, hits, or hurries, so pressures overall. Leon Jones was tied for 6. He had 2 pass breakups. Micah Baskerville tied for 6th with pressures per rep. The easiest way to explain that is he had 10 opportunities where he pass rushed as a linebacker when he was blitzing. 4 of them created pressures. So that was good enough for a grade of 20, but really just think of it, 4 times out of the 10 times he blitzed, he got pressure. So that was good enough for 6th in the league. Amen Ogbongbemiga, 10th in stop percentage. The easiest way to relay this is on the run play. So this is run defense. Of the plays he was in, he was responsible on 18.2% of those plays for getting the tackle, for stopping the play. So that was good enough for 10th in the league. And Daniel Hardy was 8th in total overall PRP. That's PFF's grade for pressures per rep. Takes into account sacks, hits, and hurries. He got a grade of 14.1. And in the season, anything over 10 is phenomenal. But Daniel Hardy, if you watch the games, he was absolutely stellar on every aspect of the game. I really hope he makes the 53-man roster. So that's it for the preseason awards and accolades. Obviously, the Bears had an amazing preseason. Sorry, Perna, the Broncos didn't win the preseason. The Bears accomplished that feat. Now, let's see how it translates into the season. Tomorrow, we'll let you know all of the roster adjustments. We're going live with the fantasy draft. We're going live with a lot of the breakdowns of the 53-man roster, so I'll get all that to you guys. Until then, claws up, bear down, and dabears.